Hello again. I've just had my morning cup of tea, and I like to have a look at the news whilst I'm doing that. I finished my brews. You don't need to watch me wiping me feral face again from drops of tea on me stash. But I've seen this story anyway. This news story, and I've just opened it out of curiosity, and I just want to go through it with you. I've got a feeling that we're going to see the two-tiered system, or as I like to call it, the hierarchy, in play. Because this is a story, and I'll read you the headlines of Sky News. I'll put the link below so you can read it yourself later if you want. Italian grandmother who has lived in UK for 42 years told to leave by Home Office. Leonarda Zarcone, born in Italy and a French citizen, and her husband moved to the UK in 1981. Post Brexit, she and her family were granted settled status, but the Home Office requested more information. Now, in and of itself, I don't care how long somebody's lived here. If you're told to leave and there's a good enough reason for it, you're gone. Even if you have been given settled status, that doesn't mean you have the right to stay forever. I did see something yesterday about the Qatari legal system, immigration system. They only grant about 50 people a year settled status, and even then, you've got a different set of rules for people who aren't natural born Qataris, and also your children. If the father isn't Qatari, the children aren't classed as Qatari either, and I fully agree with that. I do believe Qatar have got that right, and we need to really be taking a more proactive stance in protecting our cultural identity, like Qatar are doing. Simply being born here doesn't make you British. And people might say to me, "Oh, Dave, that's racist. Who are you to say that?" Well, I'm actually projecting my own lived experience, as people on the left like to say, which is I was born in Munster, Germany. My mum and dad were both in the army during the Cold War. So I was born in, and part of that was being in, the British Army, being in Germany, and the standoff with the Russians, well, the Soviets, I should say, in East Germany. So I was actually born in Munster, Germany. I am not German. I do not identify as German, and I've nothing to do with Germany. Now, well, I'll contradict myself slightly. I did go, when I was in the army, I chose to get posted in Germany. I spent 5 years in Germany because we left when I was 3, so I didn't remember it. But I wanted to see where I was born, the country that I spent the very formative years of my life in. It was very interesting, and in that regard, I feel a slight connection. But not in the sense of I am German, I'm English. I'm an Englishman, I'm of Anglo-Saxon descent. So even though I was born in Germany, I'm not a German. This is, it's not a hard concept to wrap your head around, that being born somewhere and being of the place are two totally different things. And this is, sorry about the sniffing and that, I'm full of a virus at the moment, so I do apologise. It's probably why my eyes are looking a bit rank as well. But anyway, I've gone way off topic there. Back to the story. An Italian. Oh, and I'm sorry about the reading away from the screen as well, and not having it on camera for you to follow with me. Unfortunately, I am a bit of a poor person, so to speak, and I can't afford a laptop at the moment to be able to have that sort of activity going on. But I do endeavour in future to invest in at least a semi-cheap laptop, so I can have a camera on the top and film myself and have software going with it on screen, so I can read off the screen and you can see everything, myself and what's going on the screen at the same time. But unfortunately for now, I've got to do it with this nearly 10-year-old touchpad, stickers courtesy of one of my daughters. An Italian woman who has lived in the UK for 42 years has been ordered to leave or face prosecution. Well, that's right. But why aren't they doing this to say, I don't know, grooming gang members who are predominantly from Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Muslim rape gangs? There seems to be a reluctance to remove those people from the country, but they are very, very proactive on removing Europeans. or people of European descent. It's not hypocrisy, it's hierarchy. As I keep saying, we have a caste system in this country and in the West in general. Leonardo Zaccone, 74, who has 3 children and 4 grandchildren in the UK, was born in Italy and has French citizenship. Well, that's the thing as well. As I said, I think it takes in Qatar 3 generations, I think they go with, before either or your father being from Qatar. So if it's 3, I suppose that's sexism, you could say, because it's the women, is the female side of the lineage that would get affected by that. But I don't necessarily disagree with it. I mean, I'll probably extend it to mother or father of Qatari origin. But if you've just got, say, closed communities where they aren't mixing out into wider society, you know, as in intermarrying with people who've got indigenous links to Britain, then, well, you clearly don't see yourself. You're clearly not part of Britain. You're in my opinion, you're a colony within Britain. After moving to the UK permanently with her husband Marcel Brunetto in 1980, I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names, by the way. These are very unfamiliar names to me, so I'm doing the best I can. With certain words I don't care, but with people's names I do try and get them as right as I can. So I do apologise to the people in that regard. They settled in Leicester and have opened a fish and chip shop. You see, again, we've got people here who are clearly integrated into British culture. Now, I'm not saying that I don't know the full facts yet. Maybe there's a reason to deport them. But you get people who move here, don't learn English, don't integrate in any way, commit horrendous crimes against people who are indigenous to these islands, and are allowed to continue living here. I mean, this is literally the hierarchy. We're seeing the hierarchy in action here. And Britain and the West are a joke for this. These invaders and these colonisers are laughing at us. After the UK left the EU in 2020, her family applied for and were granted settled status, but the Home Office requested more information of Miss Zaccone before they approved her application. An email from the government was sent into the grandmother's spam emails and she did not see it. Last month she got a letter ordering her to leave the country. Miss Zaccone told the SWNS news agency, "When I opened the letter, it was the shock of my life." I bet it was. "All my family and my roots are here. It's really frightening. I have nowhere to go." So they can remove people then, obviously, with familial links to the UK. So when they start saying, oh, well, Ahmed has got, and I'm pulling that name out of the hat, Ahmed has got kids in Britain now, he can't leave, it's against his human rights, he has a right to a family life. Well, clearly they can do it. Clearly they can do it, but they're not willing to do it when somebody has a darker complexion than me. Which, as I say, I'll link this below tomorrow. Please have a look at this article because there's a picture of the woman there. Yes, she's obviously of Mediterranean descent, but she's only like a shade, well, I wouldn't even say darker, she's just a different complexion to myself. We're both of the same, I would say, hue, just she's slightly more olive than me, whereas I'm slightly pinker. As people might like to call me, a gammon, because I like eating gammon. An email from the government went to the grandmother's email. She said last month she had a letter ordering her to leave the country. I've read that. "I moved to this country 42 years ago with my husband. We raised our 3 children here and ran a business together here. I have paid national insurance, taxes and lived an honest life. My family have made their lives here and my youngest daughter was born in the UK. We even support Leicester City football team. This is our home." Miss Zaccone only found out about her situation with the Home Office after she was stopped by an immigration officer when returning from France in September after a family wedding. She was eventually allowed through the border control at East Midlands Airport with a 28-day visitor stamp, which has now expired. "I'm now an illegal immigrant, and all because of an email which was sent to my junk folder," she added. Well, this is where I think stuff like this, I am not a fan of emails. And I do think that they should have sent a solid, for something as important as this, it should be sent in letter form and it should be sent recorded delivery, handed over to the person, physically handed to somebody and signed for, because that way it can't be denied. So I'm not putting doubt on this junk folder story. I've had important things go into my junk folders before, so I'm not putting doubt on her. What it is I'm criticising the Home Office there for doing this job on the cheap. something as important as this. And it seemed now I know with what I said before, if she's done something wrong, she should be deported. But this sounds like she hasn't done anything wrong, and that she has lived a fully integrated life. And I don't believe that she would be a criminal. As I've said, there are people, even terrorists, aren't getting deported. I did that story the other day, and if you haven't watched it, it's you'll see it on the thumbnail saying this child belongs to jihad now, and he was a Polish man who had spent time in prison for setting a house on fire with people inside, and then was released, and then went on to kidnap a 2-year-old and assault her grandfather. You know, that man should have been deported, but he wasn't. So we have crazy cases with criminals being allowed to wander around our streets and commit insane crimes, and then allowed to stay here. And then we have a woman here who hasn't filled out a bit of paperwork and has lived here for 40 odd years and paid her taxes and lived been part of being, running a chippy. You're a part of the community. It's like running the post office. People know you. People in the area know you, and you're important. Although you can say, well, it's only fish and chips, but it's important to people's lives. You bring a bit of joy to somebody's evening with that. This is literally the hypocrisy, the two-tiered system of our country, where human rights lawyers and all these university-educated idiots, the useful idiots, are wrecking the country. Sorry about that. I'm not great with computers. It makes me cry this is why you should be sending it as a letter as well. It makes me cry to think I will be sent away from this country and my family because of this. Miss Zarcone's son David, who also lives in Leicester, said, "My mum's records prove that she has been living here for decades. She's receiving a state pension, so she's paid into the system. She's paid her taxes. She's paying she's paying a council tax, which means she's not on benefits. We have people like that. Another story I shared, mother of 8 from Pakistan, she's at the very least of Pakistani origin. I don't know if she was born here, has fraudulently claimed £100,000 over 10 years, sending it back in the name of a parents who are living in Pakistan. For all she might be sending it to them, or she might be or they might be, splitting it 50-50. Who knows? I don't really care. She's just been sent on a week-long course on why benefit fraud like that isn't a victimless crime, and she's allowed to stay in the country, and yet this woman here has just done basically a bureaucratic mistake. She's just missed a piece of paperwork and she's getting deported. This is insane. Literally insane. It is maddening. Like this. She's paying council tax. There's lots of proof. Because, that woman, that's going back to that mother of 8, she wouldn't have been paying council tax because she's receiving benefits. So we've got somebody there who's a net drain on society and somebody who's clearly a net positive because she's at least paying a council tax at the very least. A Home Office spokesman said all EU settlement scheme applicants are carefully considered on their individual merits on the basis of evidence provided and in accordance with the immigration rules. Well, that's somebody just giving a stock answer there. That is just a stock. That is just and I've had this experience with child maintenance because I've taken them to court, and you just get stock answers from them. They just stonewall you. They're not interested. They've no accountability. A wide range of support remains available for applicants, including vulnerable people. This includes support through a grant-funded network of third-party organisations dedicated to assisting vulnerable people with their applications. And that's the end of the story. Just flabbergasted. I'm lost for words. I'm literally, we have actual convicted criminals who have committed some of the worst crimes that you can imagine, like the grooming gangs. Well, I call them rape gangs because that's what they actually are. They're not, grooming is, I think, double speak or obfuscation to try and minimise the psychological wider damage in society. And, try and downplay it. It's like now when they say urban youths in the news, we know what they mean by that comment. But yeah, so we have here a person who, in my opinion, just from reading this, is running a successful business, is clearly paying her taxes, has paid into the system, paid all the national insurance contributions, is paying council tax, is facing deportation. And we have men who raped young girls, beaten them, drugged them, branded them, some possibly even murdered some. We're protected by the police, protected by counsellors, protected by schools, protected by civil servants, etc., etc., etc. They get minimum sentences. You know, some of them only get like 2 years in prison. It's crazy. And then the back walking the street, not getting deported. I mean, this is why we're going to end up with a mid-20th century mustache man in power, because people are just going to because we have weak politicians who are allowing activists in the civil service to run the country into the ground for their own dopamine hit. And this is what a lot of this comes down to, is it's people getting dopamine, not with this woman here that I'm talking about, but when it comes to these dangerous people, they get a dopamine hit from doing the activism that they're involved in. Look at me, they'll be telling all the mates, I blocked that racist government from sending so-and-so back to Pakistan. Yeah, I don't care what his crimes were. F the government. You know, they get a dopamine, and you can see him getting like that. You know, that uncontrollable smile from the dopamine, because the dopamine junkies, these people are, they're in effect drug addicts, in my opinion. You know, like that woman. Oh, there was that Swedish woman who stood up on the plane a few years ago preventing an Afghani getting deported from Sweden. Turned out he was a multi-rapist as well. And if you watch the video of her standing up, you can see the dopamine in effect on it. You can see the uncontrollable smiling and like the face twitching and all that sort of stuff. Dopamine junkies. That's what these people are. Anyway, enough of that. I'm winding myself up. Sorry about the coughing and that. If you've found this insightful, or it's got your hackles up a bit like with me, hate reading it, please like, subscribe, put a comment below, and thank you for your time. Take care. Bye bye.